Hi, and welcome to Behind the Bell ATL with the Salvation Army of Metro Atlanta. I'm your host, Keely McGill. The goal of this podcast is to provide listeners with a glimpse of what the Salvation Army does. Many people tell us that they know we provide support to those in the community who need it, but they don't know exactly what we do. We hope to change that through our conversations with Army staff, clients, and community partners. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Behind the Bell ATL. My name is Keely McGill, and this is brought to you by the Salvation Army of Metro Atlanta. Today, we have Captain Paul.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. So, I know we have worked together here and there, but I really wanted to talk today about what is a Corps and what does it do for the Salvation Army?
Yeah, so the Salvation Army, as you can already see, I'm wearing this uniform. I'm an officer. You call me captain already. And so we, over the course of time, adapted this kind of quasi-military style or format, if you will. And that goes back into the 1800s. So this is not something relatively new that we've just decided, let's put on a uniform. But when we became the Salvation Army, which was in 1878, when the name changed into that, we decided to kind of adopt a model that was very familiar. So, and when we were founded in London, England. So at that point in time, everybody served in the military at some point. And so the idea of kind of adapting this model made it very familiar. Just like today, maybe it's a little different, but like back then it was like, oh, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And so a corps is in the military is usually it's a body of people or a unit or a group of people that are together and they have a specific mission. They're on, they cover a certain area perhaps, and that's a corps. Even today in the U.S. we call it the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
But for the Salvation Army, a corps is it's a unit, so it's like it could be a facility or a building, but it's just it's the place where Salvation Army business takes place within a certain geographical area, and that's a corps.
Awesome. And I know we have a couple in Atlanta, so do you want to let me know a little bit about how many we have in the area and where you're located specifically as well?
So we have, I know in the Metro Atlanta area, we have quite a few corps, 7 or 8 within, the makeup of Metro Atlanta. Now, I am in Gwinnett County. So our corps, our facility is on Sugarloaf and Five Forks right there in South Lawrenceville. And we cover all of Gwinnett County. It's a big county. It's not small by any means, but we operate out of there. And there's a lot of activity that comes in and out. But we also spend a lot of time out in the community doing Salvation Army work, not just out of that one facility. But that's where we are, and that's what we do.
I love that. I've come and visited you a couple of times at the Gwinnett Corps, and it's just cool to see the facility and all the things that you offer. Can you touch a little bit about like general services that corps provide?
Yeah, so your average corps, Salvation Army Corps, will provide various forms of social services. And it's different because the one thing that the Salvation Army adapted is that we're not all going to necessarily look the same. So when we come into a community, the Salvation Army first evaluates what's the actual need, right? Now, most of our corps now have been in their communities for quite some time. Gwinnett Corps, for example, really came into Gwinnett around the mid-1980s. And so that's when we opened up shop. Now, Gwinnett was being served by the Salvation Army, but it was kind of being served out of the Metro Atlanta area. And it wasn't until the 80s until we had an actual location there. But in Atlanta, the Salvation Army has been here since the late 1800s, early 1900s. So the Salvation Army has had a presence for a very long time. And then even on that topic, Atlanta is a very special, unique place for the Salvation Army because it's where not only is the Gwinnett Corps, but we have our state headquarters in Gwinnett County, and then our corporate headquarters for all of the Southeast United States is in Atlanta as well. So Atlanta has a long history with the Salvation Army. But a typical corps, when they open up, will look at what are the needs, and they'll start trying to provide services for whatever that is. And that can change over time. Because it's going to be whatever the need is. But I would say standardized is probably going to be your basic human needs. Every Corps is going to provide that. That's going to be trying to figure out if you're homeless. How can we solve that? How can we help you maybe get to the next point? Also, food insecurity. Most Salvation Army Corps have some type of food pantry where we can provide grocery assistance. And then depending on where the location is, or maybe some type of assistance for transportation, emergency housing, hotel, or a physical shelter. There may be a physical location where people can go and receive shelter. And so this is kind of what a typical Corps would look like. And there may be unique programs that you may only find at that one because the local county or the community has identified it as a need and has asked the Salvation Army to be a part of that.
Yeah, I didn't know that we, like, when they started creating the course, that they would tailor it to the specific needs. For me coming in, I just thought it was a general, all the course provided all of the same thing. So it's interesting to hear that it's not the same and you tailor the needs to the community.
Correct, yeah.
I know specifically you're doing some feeding outreaching in the Gwinnett County. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, this goes perfectly what we were just saying, is in Gwinnett, for example, we don't have a brick and mortar shelter. So if someone was homeless coming into our facility, I don't have a bed or a place physically to place them. But instead we try to house them either through emergency shelter, or actually we even try to find a way to house them in a permanent situation. But the needs of the county are constantly shifting and changing, and we try to be unique in the way that we respond to them. And so one of them that came out even as recent as the pandemic was we recognized that food insecurity was going on a significant rise. Just between 2020 and 2021, just in that 1 year, our food distribution went up 155% just out of Gwinnett County.
Wow.
So you can plan for like 5 to 7% growth, and try to figure out how to meet that need. No business for a nonprofit can plan for 155% increase. You just can't. So we had to, really, well, if I'm being honest with you, really depend on our faith in God that he could provide that. And he did. The records show that he did. But so what we saw is that we need to pay attention to this. And we do have in our parking lot, sitting in our parking lot, is a mobile kitchen. So think of like a food truck or something. Now, on a typical day, this is used for emergency disasters. So a hurricane, tornado, think that. This truck gets deployed out. It serves first responders. And we, the Salvation Army, have been responding to disasters since 1900. So, for 123 years, we've been serving disasters. Well, my board and my team and my staff, we all got our minds together and said, how can we utilize this asset that's sitting in our parking lot? It has a mission. It has a purpose. It's not like it's just sitting there. It has a purpose.
Right.
But in between these deployments, going out and serving, how could we utilize this to serve a need right here in our backyard? And we kind of came up with this idea of a mobile feeding initiative where we take the unit and we feed low-income areas, extended stay hotels, or wherever the need may be. And of course, step one, anytime you're starting something new, is that you don't want to just like, all right, get in the truck and let's just drive and let's just see what happens.
Right.
You want to be a little strategic about it, try to figure because anytime you say we're going to start something, that means you're mobilizing assets, resources, and money. And being a nonprofit, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is really honoring the donor who said, we trust you, we believe in you. So we want to be a little strategic on how do we tackle this. So our first step was to brainstorm, well, where do we send the truck, right? Gwinnett County is a big county. There's 16 cities, 1 million people now in our county. Where do we send the truck? And we just thought, well, maybe we should ask someone that knows the county in and out. So we went over to the police department. And so we went to Gwinnett County Police and asked them the simple question. Here's what we're wanting to do. We want to feed. We want to do this. And I bet you guys know where we should be sending the truck. And instantly they said, we know where you need to be sending the truck. So we came in and had a great conversation with them. And they gave us a clearly identified areas. There were low income, high crime areas in Gwinnett County. And we've entered into this partnership with Gwinnett County Police that when we mobilize the unit, they actually come out with us. And so we have uniformed officers who will be police officers who are serving on the truck. They're engaging the community, and they're seeing this resource, coming into these areas. So we have both detectives that are out of uniform, necessarily, and then uniformed officers that come with us, in addition to our team. And we've been doing this now for about a year. And so we're just right at the brink now of touching almost 10,000 hot meals off our truck in the last year. In fact, we just went out a couple of nights ago and did another feeding to a brand new location. So it's not the same ones necessarily all the time. Needs move around, right? And so we found a new spot, went in there, and served 150 meals. Just that one night. Yeah, so it's a really neat ministry and a neat thing that's really come to life out of that.
Yeah, I love the main purpose of it is, one, to serve the community, but you're being able to do community outreach in two ways. It's not just reaching the individuals who have the need, but it's also working with our community partners in a way that benefits the area itself. Yes. And I love that it's a good mesh of those partnerships.
And that was a part of our conversation at the beginning too. Me personally, as the leader, I do not think leading in silos is always a good idea. So when we were trying to identify some of these locations, we're also identifying what are some of the other needs that are being displayed to us that we can't meet. Like we can't do, that's not our thing or whatever. And how could we still meet those anyway? And so then when we're going out, which we've already done in the last year, we've invited other nonprofits to come out with us. One of the great examples of this is that when we were feeding at a certain location, we went into a neighborhood. Gwinnett County Police had shared with us, and one of the detectives who knew the area, patrolled the area, kind of just whispered in my ear, because there were a lot of kids out there, and I think it was July. It was before school started, or just right when school was starting, and he said, so most of these kids were school age, and he said most of them don't go to school.
Wow.
And I said, how's that even possible? What do you mean they don't go to school? And he says they don't have their vaccinations, so they can't actually enroll in school.
Wow. Yeah. Something that you would think would just be in.
That's just like to me, like that. I just never would have thought of that.
No, me either.
And that was just in South Gwinnett. I mean, that's right here. So I said, why? Why don't they have them? And he gave a list of reasons, transportation to just the various, just don't have the means, don't know this, or their families have a certain thing. So he just said they don't go to school. And so I immediately, contacted the director of the health department. I said, hey, are you aware of this?
Yeah.
She wasn't, of course. And so then at that point in time, we're able to try to come and find, they actually they have a mobile vaccination program that they do. And so we were able to go and feed, and they were able to bring in a mobile. Now, of course, it's up to them to want to do it, but the resource was there, and several of them took the opportunity and were able to enroll in schools. So, that's the idea, is that people aren't always going to come to your facility to get whatever they need to get done. That was a great example.
Right.
The health director said the vaccinations are free. All they have to do is it's free. It doesn't cost anything. But sometimes they're not going to get there, or it's not within reach. And in Gwinnett County, for example, we don't have a really reliable public transport, transit system. So they may, it may be on the other side of the county. It might as well be in Europe, Right. I just can't get there. And so this program has mobilized assets into neighborhoods. So that's one example. There's many more like that, but we're better when we're together and not working separate.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's a balance of doing different things with other community partners. So another topic I kind of want to hit with you is at the heart of it, the Corps is also a church.
Yes.
And so you have to balance doing services for the community, but also being a church at the same time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, so every Salvation Army Corps is a place of worship. There's the officer, in this case it'd be me. I'm the pastor. I lead a congregation. We have people that come. We have people who come to the Salvation Army where to them it is only their church. They don't see it as a social operation or a social service agency. And I was one of those people, by the way. My family, has been in the Army for 3 generations. So from I think it was the second Sunday after I was born, I was attending a Salvation Army church service, and I grew up thinking, oh, the Salvation Army is my church. And so I was probably about 7th or 8th grade when I grew up in West Texas, so Bible Belt area. But I was sitting around at the cafeteria, in 7th grade, and all my little friends were asking, what church do you go to? First Baptist, and Methodist, whatever it was. And I said Salvation Army. And all my friends want to know why I went to church at the thrift store, And so that was the moment I realized not everybody sees it the same way I see it. Right? And so the Salvation Army is a place of worship. The officers are ordained ministers. The Salvation Army has a 2-year seminary school that we all have to go to, right? So it's a legitimate denomination. And so every corps, and we have to, we do these 2 things. I kind of say is, I had to live this life of being an executive, nonprofit executive, right? And then an executive pastor for my flock and for my congregation. And where we are in Gwinnett, our congregation is probably around 200 people. We have 3 services every Sunday. We have services in Spanish, Korean, and English. I do not speak at all 3 of them. I do have people that help me with that. But I speak, I lead the English congregation. And we have traditional church programming on Wednesday nights. Kids come in and there's Bible studies and youth discipleship and all this sort of thing. And then on Thursday nights, we have a full-blown music academy that's free to the public, free to the community. And so we'll have 30, 40 kids come in and learn how to play an instrument, music theory, dance, performing arts, theater, all this stuff is happening at the Salvation Army. And so we do have this kind of traditional church thing that we do. And I believe that the mission of who we are and our worship is what bleeds over into our social work, right? We're kind of this unique, at least the way I choose to see it, I guess, is that yes, we're a nonprofit, right? And there's a lot of really good nonprofits. I mean, I have a lot of them are my friends, and I work with them on a daily basis. But what kind of makes the Army just a little kind of unique is that, at least I like to think of it this way, is that every 7 days on Sunday morning, we gather together for mission realignment. So every 7 days we have mission realignment. Here's our why. This is why. And then, okay, Monday through Saturday, all right, now go do the why, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to come back and we're just going to have that realignment time. Here's why. And so out of our why, which is our faith and our love for Jesus, is what we're known for, which is our what's and how's. The Army's known for what we do and how we do it. Right. But it's that why we do it is why we still exist 158 years later, I think.
Yeah, it's that internal line of why we're here, why we like making an impact. But it's a good balance that just because you're a church doesn't mean you can serve people, or you're serving people who don't necessarily come to your church. You're getting to serve in different ways, whether it's your congregation, but also the community around you. So I think that's a great way to look at that. We're doing both things.
Yeah. And I would even say, just by doing this for as long as I have, 99% of my social work are non-church members. It's people. Most of the people who come to church on Sunday, they're coming to church on Sunday. And if you look at my social work, and all the aspects of that, 99% of them aren't even tied to us as a church in any shape, form, or fashion. They may not even be religious. They may have different religion. They may have whatever. It doesn't matter, because that doesn't matter to us. And in fact, the way we do social work is a direct, at least I think, really kind of coming from our stem of our mission, which is, yes, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, but then to serve anyone without discrimination, right? And I think that is the gospel. So our social work, which is what we're mainly known for, whatever way the Army may have touched you, in a different part of your life, as homelessness or food or thrift store or drugs and alcohol, addiction programs that we have, all these different things stem out of that why. Why? Because, well, if Jesus died for us, then maybe we can do this. So most of our social work really is primarily just for the open community, and that's who we engage with the most.
I like that, for all the conversations that we've had just here today, like, we serve anybody and whoever. It doesn't matter where you come from, everything like that. The heart of us is to provide for our community.
Right,
and I love that it spreads in different areas, no matter what aspect you hit the Salvation Army.
Yep.
All right, Captain Paul, I wore this beautiful sweater just for today and this reason, but I think it's quite well known that the Salvation Army knows that the Christmas and the holiday season is very busy for us. Can you talk a little bit about why it's so busy for us and the different events that we have going on?
Yeah, so Christmas and the Salvation Army are a perfect glove. I mean, they just fit each other. And this goes back because the Salvation Army has been engaged in Christmas work since 1891.
Wow.
It's been a long time. Before I was even born, so you know. But when what we're most known for at Christmas is, of course, what's even on this table right here, which is our red kettle. Of course, nowadays our red kettles are red plastic buckets, but they weren't always that way. You know, going back into the to the 1890s, the Red Kettle campaign started in San Francisco, California, and it was by a Salvation Army officer who ran a shelter. And so he had a shelter about 300 men. And his initial kind of idea of raising funds that year was he wanted to try to provide a Thanksgiving dinner for his men. And so our Red Kettle campaign is actually rooted in Thanksgiving before Christmas.
What?
It was. And so when he had this idea of going down to the docks in San Francisco and he grabbed a cooking kettle from his kitchen, because the idea was Thanksgiving dinner, he took it down. And over several trial and error efforts to try to raise funds, he ended up finally settling with a sign next to his kettle that said, keep the pot boiling, and just a little bell to ring the bell. And that's what got people's attention. And so he was able to raise money in his cooking kettle, enough to have a Thanksgiving meal for all his men. And he did it year after year, until an officer from Boston was actually on holiday in San Francisco one year and saw him doing it and thought, that's interesting. And he took it back to Boston, and the rest is history, as they say. So we ring bells actually in over 100 countries around the world, not just the U.S. So the Red Kettle campaign is if you ask anybody, when you think of the Salvation Army, what do you think of? Oh, those are the guys that hold the bell, ring the bell.
Even like my personal perspective of it, when I first got hired here, I had no idea half of the things that the Salvation Army does, but the one thing I did know was I knew about the bell ringing and I knew about the red kettles every holiday season. Mm-hmm. And so part of this podcast was for me to learn and share what all we do.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to the red kettle.
Almost everything does. In fact, when I do, I had a speaking engagement just a few days ago, and I usually start when I talk to a group, civic group or whatever. I'll just say, hey, okay, when I say Salvation Army, what comes to mind? And, everyone's hand raises up, and the first response is always, ringing the bell, right? Second one is thrift store. And so ringing the bell. And I say, my next follow-up is, okay, what do we do with the money in the kettle after you ring the bell? Mm. And then most of them kind of maybe a little bit, maybe they have some type of historical, or maybe, well, my grandfather said this, but there's not really a direct, oh yeah, I know what you do that. And so I always tell them, well, my job today is to say, here's what we're doing with it. I want you to know. And the reality is that the Salvation Army has been around for such a long time, and our reputation has been followed generation after generation of service, is that it's so strong that people will put $1 in that red kettle and not fully know or understand where it's going to what's going to happen to it, but I feel safe to give it there.
Right.
Like I feel okay about that. And so I always like to say, well, let me tell you what we're actually spending it on. And the Red Kettle campaign is our largest fundraiser of the year. And we go out to the front of the stores and we ring the bell, and we're so grateful for our corporate partners that allow us to do that, because they don't have to do that. No one has to let us stand there and ring the bell, but they do. And we get it too, the bell's not the most exciting thing to hear for 8 consecutive hours. We get it too, listen, my bell ringers feel the same way as you feel. But that bell is just such an iconic sound, or such an iconic, when you get out of the car and you hear it, it just makes you feel like It's Christmas.
I feel like you can't go watching a holiday movie. You know, like you hear the bell even in a holiday movie, and you're like, oh, like we're there, and we had no portion of the movie, but it's added into those holiday movies because it's just what's there every holiday.
The Salvation Army's in over 140 films, and we're usually in there for Christmas. And even yours truly has been in one Hallmark movie, Ringing the Bell.
Oh, okay.
So I got asked to ring the bell in the background in one movie, and gave up 8 hours of my life for those 10 seconds on screen.
Oh, I didn't know we had a celebrity today.
I sign autographs, it's no problem.
Oh gosh, gotta get one after this. I actually am kind of curious to going back to, like, even though we have this kettle season, there's multiple ways than just ringing a bell that you can get involved. Can you talk about the different ways that people can help support just the initiative of Red Kettle Season?
Yeah, so of course, the traditional way was, okay, go ring a bell and ring, do this sort of thing, which we still very much do. And in fact, we make it easy by just going to registertoring.com, and you can do everything online. You can, your group, your per, whatever, and you can select your location, your day, and you can ring the bell like that. So you don't have to talk to a person to book it anymore. But other ways too is that we do have virtual red kettles. Maybe you don't want to go out and physically ring the bell. Well, that's okay. Because now we brought the Red Kettle program virtually. That's where a lot of us are living now. So you can set up your own kettle, and then you can, every time you send an email, every time you're doing something online, you're essentially ringing the bell every time you hit send, because it's right there and it's available for anyone to give to. And there's other means nowadays, even when we're walking by the physical kettle, we take credit card. We take Apple Pay and Google Pay, and we take all these forms. In Gwinnett County, we've invested in actually a tap payment. And so when you walk by our kettle, you don't even have to scan anything. You can just take out your physical credit card, and just this 3 seconds, you just tap, you made a gift, you just keep walking in. And so we understand that the way people are giving changes. And we want to be able to give you an opportunity to give, because we fully believe that not just as Americans, but in Gwinnetians here in Gwinnett County, where I'm at, are giving people. And they are looking for ways to engage. And they want to find organizations that they trust and that they feel good about. And when we're standing in front of the store, we want to make it as easy as possible. And so I want to make sure we still take old-fashioned money. Like, we still take that. It's getting less and less over, but the new way virtual forms of payment, we take those too.
It goes back to catering the needs to the people, and like Red Kettles, we saw a need that we needed to change and make it easier for our community, that we made that change, just like we do that for the people we serve.
Yeah,
I love that. Another thing I want to talk about, just on top of Red Kettles, we have a couple of other initiatives and events going on. I know a big one is Angel Tree.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain the process of Angel Tree? Because that was something new to me that I didn't know about until I started here.
Well, little fun fact here is that Angel Tree, of course, that's our Christmas toy or clothing assistance program. So families can apply it with their local Salvation Army. They can get placed on our Angel Tree. And their child would then become an angel to be adopted by a community member, and someone in the community would, adopt your kid and purchase Christmas essentially for them. And the Salvation Army, we play that middle area where, we can take the needs of the community and match them to those who want to be able to serve the community.
Right.
And we'll take care of all the admin part of the middle ground. We'll take that on. And we'll make sure that the toys get to that specific child. So when you pick off like an angel tree, now back in the day it was an actual physical tree where you pull it off, but even now we do that virtually as options as well, where you can adopt a kid virtually. But that's a real kid. That's the real first name, right? So it's just the first name, the age, the desire, all that's real. None of that's computer generated. It's real. And when you adopt that child and you go out and purchase those gifts and those toys and those sorts of things, it'll come back to the Salvation Army. We have a store where we place it, and then we distribute it, and it goes to that specific child, because that barcode or that unique code to that kid goes back to that family. So you can take total confidence that when you're shopping for them, if it's Johnny, you got it. Johnny's getting it. That's who's getting it. Now in Gwinnett County, we run our own Angel Tree program separate from Metro Atlanta. And so just in Gwinnett over the last year we had a little over 2,000 kids in our Angel Tree. That's about 800 families or so, and those are all local Gwinnett County kids that receive that assistance. And yeah, it's a lot of work. And so we need volunteers, to come into the warehouse and help us sort toys. I mean, it's like Santa's workshop. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Santa can't do all the load by himself, so he needs the Salvation Army to help him out. And we can sort these toys out. Distribution day, those are big days. I think last year we did distribution over 2 days, so it's 800 families in 2 days that came in and received their toys. These are big operations. But then outside of the volunteering opportunities too, we need our kids to be adopted. During these really tough economic times, we have seen a decrease in adoptions, both from individuals and corporations. Because corporations will come in and say, "Hey, we'll take 100 kids. We'll do it as a company, or we'll all pull in as a staff or whatever." But that has decreased over the last several years. And in fact, even just this year, going into this Christmas season, we've already had several corporations say we can't take any this year in Gwinnett County, and so we're already trying to think that through. But yeah, we'll definitely need kids to be adopted. And then in Gwinnett, we actually do senior citizens as well. So we do about 50 or 60 seniors, and we'll put them on our Angel Tree list. And their requests are, Johnny wants that new Marvel thing or whatever.
Yeah.
They want a microwave that works. Wow. They want a bed frame. These sorts of things. And so we will take them and we'll match them to the right people that want to also help and assist them.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't, when I thought of Angel Tree, even like I said, the fact that we even cater to seniors and seniors' needs and how it's still a need no matter what the age is, and you use Angel Tree in a great way to do that for them.
Yeah, and just the kind of neat little fun fact here is that there's lots of agencies now that do this model. They take a child in, they adopt a child. The Salvation Army was the very first agency to ever do it. Wow. It was in the 1970s, and it was in Nashville, Tennessee, is where that started. And it just started by the lieutenants that were there at the time, put a tree in their building, a lobby, and they just had this idea. Hallmark used to make these little cars in the shape of angels, and the couple just had this idea of, what if I put a kid's name on there and just like a toy wish, Yeah. And they started small in their little community there, and then the next year it just grew and grew to the point where it kind of became a Nashville thing, and then it grew from there, and now it's a national thing. But that's how it started, was in Nashville by 2 lieutenants, this idea of connecting the need to those who are able to help. And so the Salvation Army is the first one to do it. Certainly there's room for agencies to do this, and to be able to tackle more needs. There's a lot more kids in population that can certainly use this, but that's how that system works.
Yeah, it's good to know that, like, even with the Angel Tree program itself, there's different avenues. Like, if you yourself can't, take on adopting a child, you could do it differently from volunteering, or maybe even reaching out to your employer, being like, hey, this is something I believe in. Can we get a group of employees to come and do this? So it's it's again, changing that mindset where it doesn't have to all be on you. It can be a community thing.
This is a part you can't forget. These are local kids in your school system right now. Yeah. So when you pick up a kid from, you adopt a child from Gwinnett, that's a real Gwinnett kid who's going to some elementary school in Gwinnett County. If you're in Fulton or DeKalb, those are Fulton, DeKalb kids that are right. So each of these kids are real local. It's not some kid, not that those kids don't need help, but understanding that we need to take care of our kids in our back, but it's not a kid from another part of the country. It's right here. This is a Metro Atlanta child.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think, sometimes we get blind that it's not happening to our next door neighbor, but like it could be literally a classmate of your kid that doesn't get to have the same Christmas experience as your own children. So back on to the holiday events and everything that we were talking about, and Angel Tree is a great one for people to get involved, but we also have Canathon, which goes back to one of our big needs of feeding people.
Yeah, Canathon is something that's unique to the Metro Atlanta area. And that's about 40 plus years ago with 11 Alive and this partnership and this relationship, this to try to raise in one day enough food, canned goods and these sorts of things to stock all of our pantries for, hopefully for the year, at least for a good chunk of the year.
Right.
And so it's just one day on the calendar. It's usually the first Friday of December. And it's just that day, it's on the news. It's stop by and drop off your cans. And I've been appointed or stationed here in the Metro Atlanta area now for about 5 years. So I've had 5 of these under my belt now. And I love the Canathon days are great days. They start early, they go late, but we really are trying to get as many canned goods in one day to stock our food pantries. There has been a dip in Canathon a little bit over the last few years. In fact, we've already ran out of food for this year for what we earned last year. So we're actually at a deficit right now as far as canned goods. But for Canathon, it's so easy. Publix is a partner with us, and I'll just speak in Gwinnett County, is that on Canathon Day, Publix brings out several of their tractor trailers. They donate that time and their personnel to us, and they bring out the pallets, and then it's just a drive-through. You just drive through our parking lot, drop off your goods, and you can just go on. It's just in and out, in and out. You could buy any canned good anywhere you like, and you can just bring it in, and in addition to providing these trucks and all that, Publix also donates several pallets of food themselves, and to all the various pantries around the Metro Atlanta area for the Salvation Army. It's a great partnership. Great, they're so kind to us, and 11 Alive as well. But yeah, the Canathon is it's a really big deal here in Atlanta, and I just want to make sure we're on record that Gwinnett County is the best county to raise cans from, because every year, at least I've been here, we've raised more cans than every other county on that one day.
Okay. Yeah. Is that a challenge to the other areas?
I think it is. Okay. Yeah. So I think it is. I stand by my words that I don't think you can beat Gwinnett County. We have some great corporate partnerships too. Two I like to highlight is Greater Atlanta Christian and Primerica. These two, Greater Atlanta Christian's a school here in Norcross, and Primerica's in Duluth, and it's their headquarters. But just between the two of them, every year, probably about 100,000 cans just within those two facilities. And they drop them off, and it's just really great. And then in addition to whatever the general public gives on that day. But if there's anyone else, Fulton DeKalb or anywhere else, that wants to try to put us to the test on that, I'd welcome that.
One of the things that I love that you brought up was that you've already partnered with Atlanta Christian School. Something new that we're doing with Canathon is we're reaching out to other schools in the area. We're creating a school challenge where you can do a construction, right? So the school that creates the biggest or coolest construction will get voted on, and they'll win a prize that is sponsored by 11 Alive.
Oh, cool.
They're also doing a couple of different things, like most can collected, obviously, but even like the most personal why, like why do you want to give, like so students can write messages about why they think it's important to give, and the most thoughtful message will also get to win a prize. So we're creating these new challenges to break through into different areas for Canathon to kind of increase, because we know, like you said, that we've seen a decrease in donation. So let's open it up. Let's make something new to see if we can get more donations.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that idea, because the reality is that the cans that we get from Canathon, whatever creative method it is, the more cans that we can get, that's saving really the donor money from trying to fill our pantries, right? The more that we can get is that we're able to meet that need year round. And so it really is a significant day to participate in, is to just stop and grab a few cans, drop it off at your local Salvation Army on that day. Who knows, you may even be, they may catch the news of you dropping off. Who knows? Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Who knows? But for, whatever we collect on that day, I mean, that's really what our budget is. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. How many families we can help per month for the year. So I highly encourage everybody to participate in it.
So I know we talked about volunteers in different formats. We talked about them, for Canathon, Angel Tree, but what other aspects that goes into running a corps? Like, how are other people being able to get involved? That's not necessarily typically like traditional volunteering.
Well, let's see. Every corps has an advisory board that helps kind of govern, helps with awareness and raising funds and this sort of thing. And so like a nonprofit, most nonprofits have a board of trustees, that sort of thing. We do have a board of trustees in the Salvation Army, but they actually it's an internal one that sits at headquarters. So at the local level, we have what's called an advisory board. And these are men and women who volunteer their time to come and help specifically with the local operations of that Salvation Army. So they're not a policy making group necessarily. They're not sitting there and trying to determine policy or this or whatever. They're going, okay, what's the need and how can we meet it? And I like to say that they're the ones that get to just focus on the fun. And then the internal stuff is, another group worries about that. And so they, a board member typically would get recruited or get asked to join. And once they do, there's some commitments and there's things that go along with that. And usually, it's monthly commitments to some weekly commitments, depending on what the ask is. But they come in and they help us with strategic ideas and thoughts and ideas. They help with relationships throughout the community, be it corporate or personal. We may sit around and say, hey, this need. In fact, I give you earlier in our talk, I mentioned, this need with vaccinations. Well, it just so happens that at the time, the head of the health department was on my board, and so having that already relationship there just able to meet that need quicker. And so really, it's about finding people in the community who are in a position in life, or maybe they have a spirit of influence, or they're in a position where they realize they could potentially do some good. They just need to find a way in order to accomplish the good. And they can come and serve with like the Salvation Army and use their position or use wherever they are and open some doors for us that maybe we couldn't open by ourselves. And we've seen over in Gwinnett County, we have, again, I want to make sure we're clear that, Gwinnett County is my heart. So I'm going to say we have one of the best. But we have an advisory council of about 20 people that come alongside us and help accomplish the mission. And they're local business people. They work in nonprofits or banking or government entities or whatever it is, but they bought into the mission, they agree, they love it, and they help us bring it to life. And so our advisory organizations are, really the lifeblood of how we're accomplishing and meeting the need.
Yeah, I think what was like really important, or something that hit with me with what you just said, was, they come from different areas. They could be, a local business partner, or it could be a director of the health department. It could be, someone that their experience or their current role might not directly relate to the Salvation Army, but internally they have some sort of experience that they could bring and voice, and they still add to the community, whether it's through conversation or just being a part to share their time on an advisory board. So I think that that's very something to hit on. Like, you might not necessarily have a background in nonprofit, but you still can contribute
Correct.
Something to the conversation.
Yes. And a lot of what I've noticed too is there's a lot of people who are in the for-profit world, be it banking, be it whatever it is, and they've had this kind of this little desire, like they want to get connected to this nonprofit or engaged with a group of people that are in an area that they're already interested in. Like, I want to make a difference here, I just don't know how. Or I want to be able to use my influence in a positive way outside of just my normal job requirements, and then so they can get connected with, say, the Salvation Army, and we're allowed them, it gives them a platform to use those skills that, heck, maybe we don't have. Maybe, like these guys have a set of skills that I don't have, or my team doesn't have, and that allows them to bring it to the table and say, hey, I'm really good at this in the professional world, but let me offer this to you, and I can just give this to you, and we can see more families be changed, more lives, more food, more whatever it is. And I really believe in Gwinnett County that's one of the secret formulas to our success is our advisory organizations, our people who come in and sit at these strategic tables and help us come up with plans that we probably couldn't come up with, right? Because all of us in the nonprofit world, we sign up with our hearts. Like we signed all the bottom lines going, I just want to help people, I want to serve people, I want to love people, and it's a good idea to surround ourselves with people with really, really smart heads, like we can say, let me tell you how we can accomplish this, or I know some people, right? And I really think it's a beautiful marriage, and I have absolutely the highest respect for the people who serve on our board.
Yeah, it goes back to that added thing of Salvation Army sees that there's an area for change. Let's get people there who can like help us make that change. And it's that added layer of doing both, the religious aspect of it and like the nonprofit, the helping people, but also the business side.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like we're an organization and, we need to fill the organization with people who can help us succeed to help our goal.
And I'll even say, talking about, we are a nonprofit, faith-based nonprofit, but I also would even like to say that I have people on my board that wouldn't necessarily identify as a faith person. Maybe they don't, they're not a regular churchgoer or whatever, So when we had that initial conversation, like, well, am I a good fit for this? I'm like, well, do you care about people? Do you love people? Yeah, then you're a good fit for this,
Yeah.
And so to serve on our advisory organization, we don't change our mission. I don't tailor my mission to the the mission doesn't change, but I have people on my advisory organization that probably wouldn't necessarily say I'm a faith person.
Wow.
I can really get behind what you're doing though. Like I see this, I can get behind this, and they come in and they assist us. So yeah, that's the advisory organizations are a place for the business community, leaders, influencers to be able to come in and make a positive impact, and they can see tangible results.
I love that, we're non-discriminatory in multiple ways in the people we serve, but even the people who we want to surround ourselves with to better us as a Salvation Army.
Yeah. And anytime when there's like I would say a PR conflict, maybe there's something in the news that isn't true about us, which happens because we're the largest nonprofit in the United States. That's a faith-based nonprofit. We're the largest one. And so we're a pretty easy target to go for when there's like a religious or a faith type of story. The people who are really able to come to bat to us are the ones who are sitting at these business leaders they're sitting in the room. They hear our tone. They hear our conversation. They see who we really are. And anytime these PR stories come out, they're the first ones that always go out, no, I'm in the room. That's not how it is. And so it's crucial to have people from the community see who you really are, because when something like that happens, it won't stay. It doesn't have solid foundation. There's a reason why those stories come and go. It's because there's not a solid foundation. It's just that it's there for a minute to try to capture attention, but who we are our actual why always lasts the test of time. And so it's because we don't discriminate, and it's because we really do care for all and love for all.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you being here today. I think we've had a great conversation, and I've learned so much even just being here with you. And I appreciate you coming out here and sharing a little bit about what a core is, and even challenging others, because as you say, the Gwinnett core is the best. So
yeah, well, I think so.
Oh yeah, y'all are doing great things, and we love seeing the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me on today. It was a pleasure to talk about what we do.
Awesome. All right, bye guys.
Yeah, hope to see you out there at the kettle this Christmas.